a lot of pages on Instagram, loved the work. From there I grew from 500 to 10,000 followers in like 1 week or something.
Whoa, okay. Hey, I'm Chase, and this is Media Offline, a series where I pick the brains of creators who inspire me to improve my craft. Miniatures are old school. They've been used since the dawn of film, but Sebastian Jern has managed to breathe new life into the technique. By mixing pop culture, the craft, and VFX, he's bringing art and education to a rapidly growing audience on Instagram and YouTube. So what's his process? Did you grow up making miniatures, or is this something that you completely taught yourself as an adult?
Well, I learned everything like a little over 2 years ago now from scratch. So I actually didn't have any prior knowledge in terms of model making. My sister is an architect, so I was like asking her about these small figurines.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is that? How you buy them? And stuff like that. She's just like, oh, that's cool. What are you gonna do with it? And I'm like, I'm gonna do what you do and film it.
Yeah. So it kind of runs in the family.
Yeah. So she's really good in sculpting as well. So I think it runs in the genes. I just try stuff and then I fail. And then I try it again. That's like basically what I do every day.
That's awesome. When you were sort of uploading to Instagram, obviously you started that from scratch. What was it that sort of made it click for you? Because you have like insane success now. I have seen your work everywhere before I even got to meet you.
Thank you.
What sort of led to that growth?
The first thing I did with the problems was to shoot food, so going into like a bowl of nachos or coffee beans, or just try to get this like 3D animation effect. A lot of pages on Instagram, like sharing pages, loved the work. From there I grew from 500 to 10,000 followers in like 1 week or something.
Whoa, okay. So obviously his work resonates with an audience online, but I wanted to know what he thinks makes his miniatures so striking.
I think it's a lot about the 3D effect and the depth in the image. So, for example, the Stranger Things recreation I did, you have this road, which is actually not a straight road. It's made so it feels longer. So the road starts wider and then goes smaller. And then you have the clouds, which is practical effects as well. You have the lights in there. You have a lot of reference from the real world, which is really important, so people can feel that they are present in the video. That's one of my stronger concepts in terms of depth. So I think depth is one thing, and lighting is very important as well. If you see like my 1917 recreation, it's basically a pretty simple miniature, but the lighting and the smoke effects and the silhouettes is creating this depth also. So it's all about a mix of lighting and miniature work and depth.
What are the sort of the lighting techniques that you're using, say for that Stranger Things model, that makes it feel, I'm not going to say so alive, but so striking? Because it is something that you watch once and you go, I really want to watch that again.
Yeah, I think it's the silhouette is like so impactful in filmmaking. You never want to light something from the front because that will make everything look flat. So shadows, silhouettes, light is actually the most important thing in everything in filmmaking, in my opinion.
You mentioned the 1917 one you did. That was something that both combined miniatures and obviously you put yourself in that, right? Is VFX becoming more of your work? Do you retouch a lot of what you do?
It's actually my brother, so shout out to him.
Okay. It must be the familial similarity.
Yeah. Well, I think for that project, we filled my studio with like smoke and then used fire effect lights.
Oh yeah, as a practical.
Yeah. Have this full-size vibe of my brother going into, the miniature area of the work. So it's just a 17-second long clip, but it took like 3 weeks to create everything.
That is always the case.
Yeah.
With sort of VFX, you're using compositing to put backgrounds in and put talent in. What else are you kind of doing to your work?
It all depends. Like some of my work requires no digital layering efforts. For example, 1917 was basically everything thing you see is made in the camera. I had a few layers of like fire layers because that's impossible to create in miniature because the particles of a fire.
You can't scale them down.
Yeah. So some of the other miniatures, I have like 20 layers of, cloud overlays to try to build up depth in the scene.
Yeah.
You hear me talk about light and depth, and that's practically what an image is about. So yeah, that's important. Yeah.
That's awesome. Sebastian's miniatures have definitely grown him an audience, but an audience doesn't pay automatically. So I wanted to know how these skills translate to his client work. With your client work, is that all miniatures as well, or do you still do travel filmmaking and more of these real-world things?
I actually not really travel filmmaking. I went to Saudi Arabia last year to shoot miniatures. I recently shot a music video as well.
Which I saw is unreal, mixing all of that miniature work into real life.
Thank you. Yeah. So that's something I directed and planned out myself with costumes and storyboarding and location scouting. And
does that scale up linearly from it takes you 2 weeks to make a miniature that you film for 7 seconds? Does it now take you 2 years to make a music video that's 3 minutes long?
No, realistically, if someone like a band asked me like, could you make a miniature music video? And I'm like, miniatures have never been supposed to be used in all frames. It's more of a establishing shot. So you see this in movies as well. You have this costly, wide environmental shots, and then you mix that in with close-ups and everything like that. So I just try to explain like, this is what we can do with it within the budget. We can have like 2 miniatures, and then the rest are going to be like full-size location shoots.
Sebastian has definitely built his niche and creates some of the best indie miniature work I've seen. So I wanted to get into the gear he uses to make this work possible.
The most important gear for me is the slider. For sure, because it needs to be stable, especially in macro with the probe lens, because all the micro shakes are picked up very easily.
And that's what gives you that parallax as well, sliding in.
Yeah. And also lighting, as I pointed out before, very important, especially with the probe lens, since it needs a lot of light. It goes from f14 to f40.
Yeah.
I want to shoot on f40 if I can. Yeah. Which requires like 200-300 watt LEDs usually.
Oh gosh, okay.
So and also I bump up my camera to 12,800 ISO.
Yeah.
So it's very important that the camera has dual ISO. I shoot on Sony A7S III, which really works well with the probe lens, since you can bump up the ISO and have a high f-stop and do more on the miniature with the lighting. The slider, the camera, and the lights, usually what I really need to have high quality.
It's sort of that mix where you need that technicality and that technical understanding to make that artistry side come alive, right?
Yeah. I think if something disrupts the creative flow, it's very easy to just not focus on the correct things. If something messes up in the technicals, it's just like it takes time and effort away from the creative journey, so to speak. So yeah.
The other thing I wanted to touch on is I've noticed through your stuff you post a lot of your work and a lot of your behind the scenes. You don't really post much about yourself. Is that a conscious decision in your online presence?
It's funny that you noticed that. Well, I try to, like, the most important part is not who I am, but more of what I do. I see sometimes a lot of people post pictures of themselves as artists, and that's fine, but I'm more like, when I post something, I want the audience to be like excited because they know that a new post means a new miniature world or a new VFX work, or they come to the same restaurant over and over and they can expect the same thing. It works for me. I don't have to post more, I think, because people are expecting results when I post, which puts me in a like pressure as well. Because I don't want to disappoint anyone. That's important to me.
Sebastian creates some exceptional work, and his process is pretty applicable to whatever you create. Learn the foundations of your craft, and then iterate. Missteps are always going to be part of the journey, but with strong foundations in lighting and composition, you'll grow to create work that captivates.